Hey guys, this is Eckhartsladder. Hello and welcome to another Star Wars Squadrons video over here on EcksToo. So Squadrons has been out for a couple of days and I am personally having an absolutely phenomenal time. The multiplayer for this game, especially with fleet battles in a full squad, is everything I hoped for and more. Last night we did about a 4.5 hour stream with myself, Charlie, Corey, Star Wars Explained, and the Templin Institute. We had a full squad and it was some of the most fun I've had in a video game ever. I somehow have 10 hours in fleet battles alone, plus all the time I've played in dogfighting and campaign, and the game's only been out for a few days, so that's a little bit concerning. Either way, one of the things that I personally enjoy about Star Wars Squadrons is the very high skill ceiling. Basically, there's a lot of room for good players to dominate bad players. So today I thought it'd be fun to talk about 5 tips that you guys can use to get immediately better at Star Wars Squadrons and get one step closer towards Galactic Ace. Alright, so tip number 1 is something that I tell to anyone who will listen when it comes to this game, and it is the Imperial's use of emergency power shunting. Now, I'm not sure exactly what the game calls this maneuver, but basically as the Empire, or at least as the 3 main Imperial ships, but not the TIE Reaper, because you do not have shields, you can do an emergency power transfer between your engines and your weapons. So this is something that fans of the older X-Wing or TIE Fighter games will be familiar with. Basically, there are various ways to shift power, and just generally, if you're not shifting power in this game, well, you're missing out. We'll come back to that in just a second. First of all, you can shift power by just changing the amount of power going into each system. If you're using simple controls like I am, I don't really think it's worth it right now to go into any deeper than that. You can shift power between your engines, your weapons, and your shields if you have them. That basically affects the degree primarily to which those systems recharge. However, unshielded Imperial vessels have a second option. They can move power directly between subsystems. And I say this is something that will be familiar to X-Wing and TIE Fighter fans because this was available in those games. So what this means practically is that when I'm playing as the TIE Interceptor, I've got full power to my engines at all times, just for the extra speed, maneuverability, and the boost, which I find to be essential in dogfights. If I need extra power for my weapons, instead of waiting for the guns to recharge, I'll do that emergency power shunt, and not only does it fill the weapons up all the way, it actually fills them to double capacity, so you're getting that bonus level. Now, if you do this once, that's enough for a dogfight, but you can actually do this indefinitely. One thing that I'll do as an interceptor is fly my vessel right up to an MC-75's shields, dump full power into lasers, fire at it at full charge, and within like 10 seconds, you can destroy a shield generator. Do that a couple of times and the capital ship is pretty much a sitting duck. Of course, there are disadvantages to this. If you are shunting power from your engines into your weapons, you are going to notice a drop off in engine performance. Initially, with the first power shunt, you don't notice a whole lot of decrease, but if you continually move power from your engines to your weapons or vice versa, either your weapons will completely stop working or you will be unable to move. You can always move power back or wait for it to recharge, but you really have to consider the Empire is basically allowing you to be very extreme with your power management, and that comes with a lot of advantages. It also simplifies power management a lot in my opinion. I'm not sure what the default control for this is on Xbox, but on my HOTAS I've got a single switch which I can use to either flip power to weapons or to engines, which is great. Another good example of this is the TIE Bomber. If you're using the twin ion, I think it's called rocket engine or something like that, basically the engine that gives you the short bursts of extreme speed, you can continually funnel power from your lasers into your engine and move across even the largest maps very fast, although you will have no lasers. Personally, I think this is fine because when I run a TIE Bomber, my loadout is double bombs, so I don't really need lasers, and when I do, I can just move some power back or hold off from the emergency shunting for a minute. But that's my first tip. My second is still related to power management, and that's consider the benefits that putting power into a specific subsystem gives you. So if we're talking about, say, an X-Wing, before you enter battle, take a look at how you've distributed power. Giving max power to one specific subsystem system will allow it to quickly generate a bonus. If you're doing shields, you get double shield power, weapons gives you, I think, extra damage, plus more laser reserve, and engines allows you to build up your boost. I pretty much never have my power fully equalized. Before combat, I'll put my power into shields so I can get that extra protection, and I'll do that whether I'm just waiting to engage somebody or if I'm resupplying or whatever else. Generally in combat, I like to go full power to engines because it gives me the most speed and allows me to build up the boost, but of course if I need extra lasers or if I think there's going to be some sort of prolonged engagement, then I will switch to weapons. Alright, so number 3 is a pretty quick tip. A lot of people ignore shield distribution on rebel ships, but it is important. Even if you're not consciously setting your shields forward before engaging a capital ship, for example, it's really important to keep a constant eye on your shield dial because the hull of rebel ships are generally a lot more fragile than their Imperial counterparts. I mean, it's obvious, if you're only taking fire from the back, then you'll have lots of shields sitting in the front doing nothing. So at the very least, switch it back. However, it's also important after you've survived an engagement to equalize your shields, normalize them, because you don't want to have your back or front completely unprotected. All you've got to do that is click the reset shield button. I think on Xbox that's hold the shield button. On my HOTAS it's up on my shield wheel, but find out the control for you. And on that note, also take a minute to set the controls up as you like. Don't necessarily use the default controls. I really highly recommend playing through campaign because it runs you through basically all of the game mechanics, and for HOTAS especially, the standard controls just don't work. If you guys want me to do a walkthrough of my HOTAS setup, that is something I can do. Just let me know if there's interest down in the comments. That ties really nicely into my 4th point, which is learn the targeting system. It can save your life. So there's a bunch of really useful targeting shortcuts. A lot of people complain about not knowing where the subsystems are on the MC75, but there's a really easy solution for this. Go into the targeting wheel, select capital ship subsystems, and just cycle through whatever you want to attack. On my HOTAS specifically, I've got buttons set up to target Imperial capital ships, to target the enemy squadron, to target friendly allies for when I play as support, and perhaps most importantly, to target the ship that's currently firing on me. This is really helpful because it not only allows you to notify your squad of a ship that's chasing you simply by targeting them then hitting ping, but it also provides you with precious data about where your enemy is, where you need to attack, or where you should run. If I'm playing support, as I mentioned, I like to focus on healing friendly ships, but I also will target AI fighters in downtime, especially if I'm playing a defensively minded U-Wing or TIE Reaper. Because as a bonus tip, those AI kills really add up, and if I'm flying and I have an opportunity to take a pot shot at a TIE fighter or an X-Wing, I will do it because that can certainly tip the scales, especially if it's a close game. My final tip is learn how to boost and learn how to drift. These skills are essential because they help break up dogfights, they help break the sort of circles of death that you can get in with another starfighter, and most importantly, they are really fun and really satisfying to pull off. Whenever I stream, I have a lot of people asking, how do you boost and how do you drift? But it's pretty simple. First of all, as I said, play through the campaign because it covers this and it covers lots of other sort of more advanced maneuvers. Otherwise, it is pretty simple. You simply boost, and then with the same button you use to boost, I think on Xbox it's right stick, you click it again and you will sort of cut your engines and your speed will be turned into rotation, so you can turn around instantly, especially if you're in a more nimble ship like an interceptor. Alternatively, the drift button is fully mappable, so if you'd rather, you can click something else to leave the drift if you're having trouble using the sticks, which I do remember being a little complex when I played with controller. On my HOTAS, I've got boost and drift on a single button, so I click to boost and then I clicked again to drift out. Maybe something similar will work for you. But guys, those are 5 tips that I have that will hopefully help you get better immediately at Star Wars Squadrons. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know down in the chat, but I also encourage you guys, if you'd like to see someone who's played a bit more than I should have, check out the YouTube streams that we do almost nightly at this point. You can subscribe to the channel and turn notifications on, and not only watch, but feel free to ask anything. And I know that Alex from Star Wars Explained, Corey from Corey Loses, Mark from the Templin Institute, Captain Shack, and more are all streaming this game, so there's lots of YouTubers and content creators for you to watch. But guys, that's all I have for you today. Until next time, be safe, have a good one, good luck, and may the Force be with you.